Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction is the official expansion pack to Diablo 2, which was released by Blizzard exactly a year ago. It's the expansion pack to one of last year's most addicting games, and although most expansion packs are released at about the time the popularity of the original game is kind of dipping, it's pretty safe to say that Diablo 2 hasn't really lost any popularity since in the entire year that it's been available. A lot of people have been playing the game on Battle.net and enjoying it, leveling up their characters and so forth, and for these players, this new expansion is going to be really exciting because it introduces a lot of really interesting changes to the game, some of which are obvious right away and others that sort of become more apparent over time. The story in the Diablo 2 expansion focuses on Baal, the third of the Primevals, who seems like Diablo's sort of more conniving brother who somehow managed to escape your wrath in the original game and you know, now gets his own game to try to beat you up in. He is looking for something called the World Stone, with which he's going to sort of open the gates of hell and destroy your world and you know, get revenge on you and everyone else for what you did to Mephisto and Diablo. So he's the last of the three big bosses, and needless to say, you'll end up facing him at the end of the expansion pack, and needless to say, that fight won't be easy. The expansion pack introduces an entire new fifth act, in addition to the 4 original acts in Diablo 2, and on top of that it introduces 2 all-new character classes, who are the Assassin and the Druid. Both of these are really interesting, actually. You might expect that you know, there's not much room for new characters in Diablo 2. The original game had 5 different characters in it, and it seemed like Blizzard pretty much covered all their bases, because you had the Necromancer with his death magic, and Sorceress with elemental magic, and Paladin and Barbarian and Amazon. That's a pretty wide breadth of characters, and people have figured out a lot of different ways to play them all. But the Assassin and the Druid do manage to fit in to this other cast of characters very cleanly. They both look quite good, and they both themselves have a lot of different tactical options, and seem really powerful and yet very different from these other 5 classes. The Assassin has skill in martial arts, setting traps, and psionic attacks called shadow disciplines. Any of these seem really viable in combat. She can lay all kinds of traps that sort of autonomously will attack her enemies, and she can, you know, run away and stand clear of all carnage. She could use martial arts and drop multiple elemental attacks or life-draining attacks and that sort of thing, and create these incredibly damaging physical attacks that way. And the shadow disciplines let her do things like even take control over her enemies by mind controlling them. So she seems like a very well balanced and very powerful character. The Druid likewise is really no pushover. He's far from sort of the nature boy you might expect from Druids as portrayed in other games. He's kind of this big tall guy clad in animal pelts. He doesn't seem to have any particular qualms about killing bad animals. He himself can turn into a werewolf form and also a werebear form, which makes him much quicker or much stronger, respectively. These are pretty interesting, and some players have decided to, you know, focus on one form or the other. On top of that, he can command a lot of elemental magics, which are different from the sorceress's spells, because these are like natural, more chaotic spells that cause volcanoes and fissures in the earth and big tornadoes and that sort of thing. It's hard to maybe target them as compared to the sorceress's stuff, but they tend to do a lot of damage when they actually hit something. He can also summon various nature spirits and various animals like wolves and grizzly bears and ravens and all kinds of stuff like that. So you can actually see some druids running around with this big entourage of woodland creatures going around with him and attacking things for him. So like the assassin, he's quite interesting and has a lot of different options. The other interesting new features introduced in the expansion are the newly enhanced hirelings, that these computer-controlled characters that you can employ in town throughout the game. These were actually in Diablo 2, but they were pretty much just a liability. You'd hire, some rogue, and she'd promptly kind of get herself killed. They still have a bit of a tendency to do that even in the expansion, but you can actually equip them now with different gear, and they level up along with you, and you can resurrect them if they die. So it's actually possible to gain a hireling and keep that hireling throughout the entire course of your character's life, which is kind of a nice feature. It gives you, sort of the sense that you're playing multiplayer, even if you're playing by yourself. The hirelings do a pretty good job of helping you out in battle and stuff like that. The expansion tweaks a lot of aspects of the interface. It gives a lot of improvements. There's a new mini-map option that floats in the upper left-hand corner, and instead of the traditional sort of Diablo map overlay, it's a lot easier on the eyes. There are new options like repair all buttons when you're talking to the town smith. You can fill up your entire belt with healing potions at the touch of a button. Streamline stuff like that really streamlines the game and makes it a lot better to play. The best of these changes is the enhanced resolution of the game. It now can run in 800 by 600 as opposed to the 640 by 480 in the original Diablo 2. Once you make the switch to the higher resolution, it's almost impossible to go back. You see a lot more of the screen at a given time. The graphics themselves look more crisp and just cleaner because they're smaller on the screen. You even get a tactical advantage because you actually see more of your surroundings at any given time. You have some more time to see things coming towards you before they actually get on top of you. So that's really helpful and makes the entire game look better. The new 5th act in the Diablo 2 expansion is probably the best of all 5 of the acts now. It's probably the longest act, and has a lot of interesting things. You start out in a barbarian village, and that's under siege by the forces of Baal, and you need to stop that siege by literally fighting your way up this mountain as these giant demonic catapults like fling like elemental bolts at you, and all kinds of imps and their giant beast steeds are attacking you. So it's a pretty tough sequence, but a lot of fun. And eventually you fight your way into the heart of the mountain where Baal is waiting for you. The 6 quests in Act 5 are quite interesting. Rather more involved than some of the quests in the original Diablo 2, and altogether it's a great addition to the game, and of course you could play on the higher difficulty levels that become available once you finish the game the first time. Diablo 2 expansion also introduces hundreds of new magical items and many new magical properties for literally thousands of new item combinations. Some of these are the most powerful weapons yet available in the game, so a lot of players will certainly be interested by that. Actually, one of the other big features is your character now has the ability to readily switch between 2 different sets of weapons. So the barbarian might have 2 swords equipped in one stance, and then can quickly switch to like a giant polearm or maybe an axe and a shield combination. So depending on the situation, you can gain, basically you have a serious new tactical advantage now by being able to carry 2 completely different sets of weapons and switch between them at any point. The rates at which certain items drop have changed. New class-specific items have been introduced. For instance, special spears that only the Amazon can use, and like shrunken heads that only the Necromancer can use, that sort of thing. So all in all, Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction is an excellent expansion pack to the original game. It'll offer players a lot more of what they've enjoyed about the original game, and the 2 new character classes are especially appealing. The new fifth act is great. It's a lot of fun. All the new items and new abilities are quite interesting and help make the game more complex and just more interesting to play overall. The villain in the game is quite fun to fight and makes a suitable challenge at the end of the game. And all things considered, like any good expansion pack, Diablo 2: Lord of Destruction, successfully adds to the original game without really taking the focus away from those qualities that made it good to begin with. That is, Diablo 2's unique sort of hack and slash formula where you're constantly fighting, surprising new groups of monsters in these randomly generated areas. It stays very, very true to that and just enhances everything around it, and therefore will be pretty much essential for anyone who's enjoyed either Diablo 2 or the original game.